I'm Mark Ramsey. I am so thrilled. I am thrilled beyond words to have the one and only Joe Kennedy here with me today. Joe Kennedy, CEO of Pandora, Pandora company you've heard of. Joe Kennedy, maybe you haven't heard of because you're too busy hearing about Tim this, Tim that, Tim the other. There's a picture of Tim in the Wall Street Journal. There's Tim on the front page of the New York Times. I don't care about Tim. I'm a fan of Joe. What do you think about that, Joe?
Well, I love Tim enormously. He's the most likable guy I've ever met. But it's great to spend time with you, Mark.
There you go.
To your credit, I think you first knocked on our door, I don't know, 4 years ago, something like that.
I've been trying to be ahead of the times, and now I find myself thanks to you behind the times. Well done, Joe. Joe, I'm thrilled to talk to you in large part because you're just back from the Consumer Electronics Show, and I know that was a big one for you, and I know you booked a bunch of deals with, or you announced a bunch of deals with automakers. Without going into all the details of those deals, because all of that is public stuff, tell me what that means to you to have those deals in place. What does it mean for me as a consumer? When do I get Pandora access in my car? How is that going to roll out? What's it going to mean, and what's the timeline?
Yeah, well, we're now publicly announced by Ford, Toyota, General Motors, Mercedes, BMW, and Hyundai. So that's pretty cool. Now, the reality of how automotive works, and I actually spent 18 years of my career there, it's hard to believe, is, this is going to roll out over time. Each automaker rolling it out across different models. And then, of course, the reality is consumers take time. It's not as if every consumer is going to run out and now replace their car overnight with a new car because of Pandora accessibility or for whatever reason. So I think what we'll see over the next 2 to 3 years is getting a tremendous foundation of Pandora accessibility across the new vehicle lineup. We pretty much already have that in the aftermarket world, also courtesy to numerous announcements by essentially all of the aftermarket players. But then we're looking at the replacement cycle of consumers, replacing the car they bought 4 years ago. They might not do that for another 3-4 years, but then picking up their Pandora integration at that point. Why does it all matter? It's stuff everybody inside radio knows. Almost half of all radio listening is in the car, and that's where consumers want to experience Pandora. They're doing it today in kind of kludgy manner, using maybe a cassette adapter, maybe a little bit more sophisticated, some kind of Bluetooth integration. But we really want to make that as simple and easy as possible. So it's not just about ubiquity; it's really about ease of use, which is just a lesson from radio, for years.
Yeah, I guess that's the one thing that's abundantly clear from radio, isn't it? That ease of use is really one of radio's trump cards, and it's something which any alternatives to radio or alternatives to entertainment in the car need to contend with, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a term we use around here, mean time to music. And you get in a car, you push one button, and maybe you don't even have to push the button. If the radio is on when you got out, your mean time to music essentially is 0. And so, yeah, we think it's a lot about ease of use.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, what is the experience like, based on what you know now about the way people use Pandora in cars? How do consumers use Pandora in cars? You must have studied that. Can you give me an idea about how often they use, when it's accessible, how often they'll use it, or what they use it as an alternative to, or what need that it satisfies for them in the car?
To be honest, I think we're still learning that. We don't have some great base of knowledge on all those questions that you asked, which are all great questions that I think we'll be learning in the coming months and years. Quite honestly, I think we and the automakers are just clearly hearing consumers saying, I want to use Pandora in the car. We've done research that says a remarkably high percentage of people, much higher than you would think, are finding those kludgy ways to listen to Pandora in the car. You'd expect that would just be kind of early adopter geek types, but our research shows even mainstream consumers are finding ways to connect Pandora into their car. But the details of their use, how it fits into their overall driving radio experience, we're still learning some things.
Okay. Let me ask you some big questions, and then you tell me that you can't tell me if you can't tell me, okay? because I'm wondering about the bottom line metrics. I mean, how many people are registered with Pandora now? How many people are using Pandora, and how much money are you making?
Yeah, and we've just announced we passed the 75 million registered user mark, which is an amazing milestone and tremendously gratifying. We've said that over 30 million people have used Pandora in the trailing 30-day period, so that gives you a sense of how many are kind of active in a very recent kind of period. The financial stuff we're gonna hold off on, but we've been pleased with the overall progress of the business, particularly really over the last almost 2 years since the whole royalty thing got resolved. I think we've not only seen the user and usage numbers do well, but we've been pleased with the progress of the business as well.
Okay. There's been in the news lately a couple of things that potentially could affect Pandora. I'm interested in your take on it. One is, of course, the net neutrality conversation. And the other, kind of on the other side, that's kind of overshadowed that, at least this week, is the announcement from Verizon. I guess it's still uncertain, right, whether there's going to be flat rate bandwidth charge. Is that still to be announced?
Yeah, I've read, it sounds you and I have read the same thing. In some of the build-up to the announcement, there was talk of maybe it would be flat rate or whatever, but nothing seemed to come out today. Our bottom line is actually caps or no caps really doesn't seem to matter. We've seen what it's like for AT&T to go from no cap to the 2 gig cap, and honestly, we can't find a single shred of analysis that can point to any difference. The reality is that audio, unlike HD video or even non-HD video, is a pretty thin stream. Most of what we stream on Pandora is at 32 kilobits per second using the most sophisticated codecs out there. It creates a really high quality sound, but in the grand scheme of data consumption and bandwidth, it's really pretty narrow. And so I actually think, all of those issues relative to internet radio, not just Pandora, but internet radio, I don't think are that big a deal as the technology continues to expand, the bandwidth speeds only improve, et cetera, and we're pretty much fine the way we are.
Let me ask you a question about that, because there's some terrestrial broadcasters who still contend to this day that, from their perspective at least, there's no business in streaming, there's no business in online radio. What's the message you would convey to them?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I'm really, here to convey a message to them. I think we clearly we believe in this from a business standpoint. I think we've approached this trying to merge doing great things for consumers with trying to build a business. The royalty structure is high. It's fundamentally unfair how high the internet royalties are. We are public. Everyone knows it. We believe that radio should pay royalties. All of us in radio should pay royalties. So the internet rates are clearly too high. But we've accepted the challenge even within that context of building a business at the rates, and have worked very hard to do that. Again, finding an intersection of great consumer experience and make the business work. And I think the only reason we're alive today in a tough category is because we've worked really hard at both of those pieces of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. As you probably know, Sirius XM by the end of this year is going to be introducing some changes to their system that integrate, along with other things, probably some element of personalization, with the difference, obviously, that they've got, in addition to music, they've got premium non-music content that can funnel into their mix. And I have to ask you, as you look forward on the horizon for Pandora, is music the end-all and be-all, or is there more beyond music?
I think all of us who know and have studied radio know that music formats have always been the great majority share. 80-85% of music listening is to a music format. That certainly might have DJs and things like that, but fundamentally the format is music. So we're pretty comfortable that we have kind of the majority of the radio experience covered. Are there opportunities for us down the road to do interesting stuff in spoken word? Could be. I think the greatest opportunity for personalization is with music. It is the most diverse, the most intensely personal part of the radio experience. And so I think it's the ripest for what we do, taking advantage of the unicast two-way nature of the internet. But that doesn't rule out that there are opportunities for us to do things in spoken word down the road.
Tease me about what's coming up for Pandora, not in terms of announcements and deals, but what's coming up about Pandora that might be surprising to people who use the service day in and day out. 6 months from now, a year from now, what's going to be different about Pandora than today?
Well, we're not really set up. If you follow the history of Pandora, sometimes I joke we're the broken record guys. We've kind of been talking about the same basic strategic themes, since the day we launched, and so. I don't really have anything in terms of, hey, wow, Pandora is going to be wildly different in 6 months or 9 months. We're continuing to work away on distribution ubiquity and ease of use, as we've talked about. Clearly, that's been a theme for years. You see growing evidence of that. That will continue as a saga. Probably, I think, the least visible, least appreciated thing that we do is the work we continue to do just in terms of the core algorithm set, in terms of making the core of what we do better. We are far, far, far from satisfied, far, far, far from considering the problem solved of how do we take these inputs from the consumer and find that perfect mix of discovery and familiarity and variety and repetition that is just right for each listener, for each of the different types of music that they've indicated to us that they love. We have a team here that, maybe somewhat analogously to Google in terms of how they continue to refine their search algorithms. We're continuing to work to find ways to solve that better and better. And that's not visible or on the surface, but I will tell you, when we make improvements, consumers may not know that it's changed, but their behavior changes in ways that we can clearly tell that we've made a positive difference. So I think that's the area that people really don't talk that much about Pandora, but gosh, we still spend an awful lot of resource continuing to improve that core product experience.